Okay. This is Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Multi-platforms.
And now you're going live on Facebook. So
Oh,
you know it'll be a slight delay, so just give it a second for it all to.
all righty.
You got your mics?
Yep, he got them on his.
They're on my sleeves.
Oh,
The guns.
whoa. We're going to hear pop, pop, pop.
That's right.
Firing off, brother.
All right, let's see. Sir, can you start checking to see?
I am, but I don't see anything on.
All right, guys. Going live. Got some questions sent in
He is live on.
via Manect.
Okay.
We're live on LinkedIn.
Let me refresh my page. Okay, yeah, I see it.
Just want to find out that he is live.
Man, you don't know.
This is
Just wait for the comments.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'm live. I'm going to start answering a couple of questions. One of the questions we had was from Samaj Henderson over here on Manect. If you guys are not on Manect, you haven't Manected me, it's a great spot. We do $10 texts over there. And sometimes I will answer them live on the air, unless you tell me not to. So Samaj is out of Illinois, Chicago area. And he asked, I recently left captive life insurance space to start my own Medicare agency, being mentored by Josh Lustig. I'm one of his downlines, and I really appreciate the support from the VBI team. I'm running Facebook ads to my webinar. Cost per lead is $10.25 and $126 CPA on a $15,000 to $20,000 budget right now. I'm currently a solo agent with no team yet. I want to build the business with the LOA model. Would you focus on lowering CPA or scaling at this point? Also, if you had to rebuild from scratch where you are now in the most efficient way, how would you do it? Let's break down a couple of things here. So we're talking about a $10. Let's see if I can get a better marker than that. $10.25 per cost per lead. Okay. So by the way, since he told me his cost per acquisition, then the cost per lead is pretty much irrelevant at this point. I mean, it could be relevant to some degree to find out what his closing ratio is, because there's an opportunity cost associated with the time spent. And since he's a solo producer, time spent is still a very important variable. It's always a somewhat of an important variable. But he's saying he's got a $15K to $20K budget. Doesn't say exactly how often that budget is. I'm guessing he's saying monthly. I'm not sure if he's saying what he's saying there. So let's just break this down. Okay. So if we have a $126 CPA, and let's pretend for a minute that he is at street level. He's focusing on a webinar that I'm guessing is T65. So if he's writing true up Medicare Advantage plans, that's a $694 immediate commission. There's no proration in Medicare Advantage sales for true ups. So that means it's a year-round $694. If he's writing a med sup, if we do the math on street level at, let's say, a $1,300 Medicare supplement premium times 21%, that's $273, probably plus at least a $25 open enrollment bonus. So we'll just say it's a $300 commission on average. So even if he was 50-50, that would be an average of probably $497 without any cross sales. So if he's average $497 without any cross sales, we can probably safely say that with Josh Lustig being somebody that's mentored him, that he's at least adding another $100 in commissions there in on each deal for cross sales, be it the occasional PDP, dental, vision, hearing, cancer, heart attack, and stroke, hospital indemnity, etc. Okay, so we got some variables here. We have a $597 $597. See how good this eraser is. $597 first year value, or what we would consider immediate return on ad spend. So we have $597 immediate return, or let's call it first year commission. And we have a $126 marketing cost per acquisition. Right now, his time doesn't cost any money. Although time is valuable, it doesn't cost any money. So his profit per deal is $471 immediately. And that's not counting year 2, 3, 4, 5 renewals, etc., referrals. And I'm being pretty conservative on this. I'm being conservative on what his product mix is and conservative on his cross-sell value. Could be significantly higher than that. So if he's making $471 a deal, then when you say you have a $15,000 to $20,000 budget, your budget should be how often can you replicate it? So if I can replicate that 20 times a week times 52.14 weeks divided by 12, that's 40,929.90 in profit from my deals on top of the marketing. That's basically, if I have my marketing CPA at 126 and I can replicate that, then I can make $41,000 profit a month after my marketing cost is paid for. So the amount you should spend, so what would the spend on that be? 20 a week times 126 times 52.14 divided by 12, it'd be about $11K a month. So my thought is if he's spending $15,000 to $20,000 a month, let's just say $17,500 divided by 126 CPA. See, 17,500 divided by 126 CPA. That means he's saying he's getting 138 deals a month, 138, 139. So if he's doing that divided by 4.3, we're looking at about 32 a week. So if 32 a week times 471 profit, we're actually talking about him making $15,000 a week, which is $60,000 a month in profit. So if he's already making $60,000 a month in profit and he can't get it any more efficient, like he asked if he should lower his cost per lead. Your cost per lead is already low. Your cost per acquisition is already low. You're instantly profitable. You're only bound by how much time can you get people to spend on the phone. Now, there is you need more agents, but when you do have more agents, what's going to happen is you're going to learn that what you've learned so far about marketing and selling is different than hiring an agent, training an agent, getting them in the seat. But that's the next step. So, now some people would say, put that off, hunker down, don't get distracted. You're making so much money. Just keep on scaling and pump out as much as you can for as long as you can. A couple of years straight doing that, and you'll have a tremendous amount of renewals. So let's say if you're making $60,000 a month, let's just use 85% persistency there and say it's $51,000 a month times 12. The $612,000 a year net immediate profit. But just on my renewals, if I'm stacking on average, let's call it a $300 annual renewal, and I do that for 3 years, at how many deals do we say you're doing a week? 32 times 52.14 times 85% persistency. Then every year I'm stacking up another $425,000 to $450,000 in renewals. So in year 2, you could make $1 million. The next year you could make, 1.5. And that's still with conservative math. I'm doing 85% persistency on an educational webinar. So anyway, something to consider is just scaling what you're doing. You don't need to lower your cost per acquisition. $126 is cost per acquisition. Yesterday, we were talking about this with somebody who was trying to sell us their book of business. So what is an acceptable cost per acquisition? My goal for cost per acquisition is to get a 2x return on ad spend. But what do I use in my 2x return on ad spend? I don't use lifetime value unless I have a whole bunch of fake money to pull from. I use, if I'm using 2x return on ad spend, I'm using my first year commission. So if I'm spending $126 and I'm getting, what's that? 252. That's 2x. I'm getting my immediate return on ad spend, plus I'm doubling it. So I'm getting a 2x return on ad spend. In his case, at 471, what's 471 divided by 126? That's his return on ad spend. He's at a 3.73 return on ad spend. If you can have a 2x return on ad spend, you can continuously double what you're doing as long as you can add enough seats. So in a supply and demand market, in insurance, you don't have, a lot of people say, oh, we don't have a supply, we don't have an inventory. But you do have an inventory. You have an inventory of time. So I have my own time. Let's say I'm willing to commit 80 hours a week. So I have my time, my supply of individual time. Now I have a supply of a process or efficiency. So if I can't spend those 80 hours helping customers, how many of those hours can I spend helping customers? If I could line myself up with, like say in 80 hours, I'm outbound dialing colder leads, and I spend all my time working, trying to get 10 sales in that 80 hours, then, you know, basically 80 hours equals 10 sales. But if I can make my efficiency work out where I can spend that 80 hours and get 32 sales like Samaj is doing, then I have 32 sales. I'm just going to count that he's working 80 hours. I don't know what he's working, but the 32 hours for 80 hours or 32 sales. Now, he's got a lot of operational stuff built into this because he's running his own ads. He's thinking about his business, all that. If I can get an agent to put 40 hours in and get even 25 sales to be conservative, then I need more of these 40 hours. If I can turn 40 hours of somebody else's time into 25 sales, that's great. Now, my return on ad spend will stay the same, but I would develop an operational cost because now I have 25 sales for 40 hours, but I got to pay for those 40 hours. I have to pay the agent. But when you're looking at $471 profit per deal, even if you paid the agent $200 per deal, then you still have 271 profit, which is still over the 2x return on ad spend. Now you'd remain return on ad spend, remember, is your growth, your net immediate return on what you're spending, right? Your gross commissions on what you're spending, right? So it doesn't actually reduce your return on ad spend. It's just showing that within that return on ad spend, you have unlimited operational costs as long as you can find these people to get 40 hours in the seat and trade it for 25 sales over and over and over again. Now, a lot of people that'll say that they have this, it's a scalability issue. So there might be a timeline issue. So on the webinar, for instance, it could be that when you hire this guy to give you that 40 hours that you're trading for 25 sales, that it takes 3 months of him working before he can actually get to that 25 sales. Or maybe 3 months in, he's at 15, 6 months in, he's at 25. So you have to figure out, how do I pay him for 3 months before he's getting enough sales for his commission to go up? So how do I get him through that original part? And that's why a lot of people in the insurance industry have come up with a draw. For us, we build in a salary that we can get behind paying forever and then add commission on top of that. The reason I say this with a webinar specifically is sometimes a webinar is educating people months and months in advance of the time that they would actually make a decision. All right, as we're going right now live, if you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat on any platform that you're on, and we will answer them. And if I don't get one, I'm going to go back to my Connect Bank and go to the next question. If you can hear me, please comment below, yes, I hear you. If you will, please also let me know where you're watching from. We appreciate you guys tuning in today. while we go over some different things that we hope help you out. So let's see here. What's our next question? Last couple questions. Right now, as a solo agent running my agency, I'm making all the calls, doing all the follow-ups, and cross-selling life insurance to help fund more of the Medicare business. My question is this: even though I'm putting in the work, it sometimes feels like I'm moving slower than I should be. My goal is to hit 600 active MA and Med Sups by August 1st, 2026. See, this is an issue. So this is still Samaj, and I'm just going to ask Samaj what's going on here, because maybe that 15 to 20,000 that he said was his budget was a yearly budget, because now that's starting to make more sense. But your budget comes out of your immediate return. It's not, I don't need a certain amount of money if my action is giving me money every time. So if I need to get to 600 active Medicare clients by August 1st, 2026, he said this in November. So let's say 10 months. And we just, based on the math we were seeing, we would be at 32 clients a week. Let's say it's not 32 clients a week. Let's say that 126 was annually, 126 CPA at 15,000 to 20,000. Let's go 20,000 annual budget. That's only going to give him 158 sales in a year. So 158 clients, but his return on ad spend on them should be still that 471. So he's going to immediately make $74,761. 74,000. So he's making 75K profit after his ad spend is covered. That 75K is the money. That should be additional budget as much as possible. So let's say remember, this is still conservative. Let's say I live off 35K that year, and I'm pumping half of that back in to scale it up. So I pump in another 40,000 in ad spend just from my initial 15 to 20, divided by $126 CPA. That's another 317 sales. So your answer is pumping in additional ad spend. But remember, I pumped that in. I got these additional 317 sales. 317 times 317 times 471. Now I have another 149K to spend. So even if I didn't pay myself anymore, that's another 149K I could be spending at $126 CPA. That's 1,200 new sales. Now, eventually you're running out of time. So you have a time issue. You know, what is my time issue? Do I not have enough time on the calendar? Do I not have enough people to talk to? You said your CPA is $126. Is it unscalable? Have you not been able to spend more to get that? Because we have to know that. Is it scalable? You have to look at all these factors. Is my CPA scalable? Am I out of time? So if I'm out of time, what am I spending my time doing? Because if I'm out of time at 158 sales in 10 months or a year, let's see, 158. Let's say I'm working 40 hours times 52.14 is 2,085 hours divided by 158 sales. That means it's taking me 13.2 hours for one sale. And that's just a 40-hour work week. So if that's the case, are you cold calling a lot of leads to generate the sales? Is that what it is? Because if that's the case, maybe I need a telemarketer to help me get through the leads. Or maybe I just need more lead flow. Maybe my CPA is too low. Maybe the CPA is not, I don't need to get my CPA lower, I need to get it higher. Because 13.2 hours may be your expense. It may not be the $126 CPA. It may be the 13.2 hours I'm spending per sale. So anyway, these are all factors. All right, we got Angelica Martinez over here, can hear us, and she's from Donna, Texas. That's awesome. Welcome, Angelica. If you have a question, please ask us a question. Otherwise, I'm going to pop back up over here. Oh, who do we got over here? Zach Brandon. Why people having a lot of fall off on UHC or Humana? Why are people having a lot of fall off on UHC or Humana? Well, putting both of those together, and without naming which one is which, I would say that we're not having a lot of fall off on both of those. One of those has more than the other, which I can speculate on why, but we don't have a lot of fall off on both of them. You know, we do think there are some carrier practices that can lead to more fall off than others, and we work with them to try to explore those options. But normally we try to focus on what can we control. And what we can control is if I have a carrier that I have more fall off on, maybe I can identify why that is. But instead of saying, I'm just not going to write that carrier, that's impossible. Humana is making up about 52% of our Medicare Advantage sales right now. United Healthcare is probably another 30-something% of them, 32, 36, something like that. So a lot of sales going into those two carriers. So if I had an issue with one of them from that, it could never be, I'm just not going to write that carrier. What I'm going to do is figure out how do I do some extra outreach to that customer, some extra rapport building, look at the sales process, look at the marketing I'm using. If I can increase my persistency by things that I can control, then I can always later on, you know, at our level, we are talking to the carriers about things that hopefully that, you know, they can do to improve processes. We want to look at what we can control. All right. Somebody said plan discontinued. So if you're talking about why is a lot of the carrier, I mean, United Healthcare definitely ended a lot more plans than some of the other carriers, and so that's falling off. They're falling off because the plan ended. There's nothing. I don't think that's what he was asking. Hopefully, because they're falling off for a reason. So United Healthcare has a strategy to reduce some of its less profitable PPO footprint, try to sustain its numbers where they are instead of growing this year, get their bearing back, restore star ratings. Humana also has a star rating strategy. You know, the market isn't always in growth mode. Sometimes the market is trying to look at profitability. There's a lot of variables changing, so I definitely don't demonize carriers. Why agents having? I think we're missing a B verb, R. Why are agents having a lot of fall off on UHC or Humana? I don't see any trends that I would say are there. You're talking about the two largest Medicare Advantage carriers. So I'm assuming you're talking about Medicare Advantage. Agents are going to use the reticular activating system is going to tell you that you have a lot more fall off with those two carriers because that is where most people's business is. So I don't think that there's a trend out, especially, I mean, I know with United Healthcare, we don't see that trend at all right now. So, you know, other than them systematically ending a certain plan. So that's my answer to that. Okay, let's go back to Manette. Would love more questions you guys have. Saw some of those coming from LinkedIn. Saw some coming from Facebook over here. That's awesome. If you're watching on YouTube, you can definitely leave us a comment as well. All right, let's see. All right, Justin, this one's coming from Michael. I'm starting out as a HEAP agent on the Medicare side, but I'll be owning my book for life and health insurance as I build. My goal is to transition to broker after year one and eventually scale into an FMO. From your experience, if you were in my shoes in 2025, what specific marketing or positioning strategy would you lean into early to get real traction? And on the carrier/FMO side, what's the smartest way to structure those relationships so I keep leverage as I grow? I don't really like this question very much because I think there's a lot of things being asked that are a little preemptive. So I'm not trying to, you know, critique the question. We want as many questions as possible. There are no bad questions. But I'm starting out as the first premise. Let's talk about the first part of it. I'm starting out as a HEAP agent on the Medicare side, but I'll be owning my own book. So what does it mean to own your own book? Okay. Someone could basically say you're HEAP and you're LOA to us, but if you leave, you can rewrite your book. That doesn't necessarily mean you own your own book. That's them saying that they're not going to police you rewriting your customers that you wrote as an LOA to them. But technically owning your own book means that the commissions are paid between you and the carrier. That's typically what it means to own your own book. Once something is LOA, there's an intermediary between you that has to pay you commissions. They own it. Now, You could have a paper contract, an actual signed contract that says that they have to pay you that. And that would basically get to the point where it's just the same as actually owning your own book. But by you saying it, I would ask you, do you have that in writing? Because you certainly aren't getting renewals either. It's HEAP. My goal is to transition to broker after year 1 and eventually scale into an FMO. So let's also think about this. If I have a HEAP model, what a HEAP is, it's a financed acquisition of a policy. It's not compensation for a sale. It is, I am purchasing the policy from you that you wrote for an advancement of the commissions that you would have, you would have gotten, basically. So if I'm saying that policy to me is worth $800 and then you write it and your first year commission was going to be $347, I pay $800, I'm paying over 2 years worth of commission. If a year in you leave and start rewriting your book because you have ownership, then I'm actually losing money because the commission the first year was only $347 and I paid you $800 for the policy. So that's why most people wouldn't allow that, because it would be idiotic for them to pay a HEAP amount. Now, there are some groups out there that are using the term HEAP to tell people they're HEAP, but they're only paying them $100, $150, $200. That's not technically HEAP, but it's the same premise. They own the book. Why would they pay you $200 commission and then let you turn around in a year and rewrite it? Because by the time fall off exists and all that, they're probably only netting that anyway. So let's go out back here. After that, he says, my goal is to transition broker year and eventually scale into an FMO. So we're talking about what takes most people decades, just kind of like, hey, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. So slow down, bucko. Let's talk about step 1. What are we actually talking about here? Step 1, learn how to sell the shit. Step 2, learn how to market it, all the while making sure you're keeping compliance front of mind. And then there's a ton of steps in here, but the macro step here you're talking about is becoming an FMO. An FMO has to have a value proposition to agents. Now, FMO traditionally, a lot of them didn't have value propositions. They would just say, hey, we get you contracted, and people didn't know. Now that there's competition in the space, the value proposition is money, technology, contracting efficiency. There could be other things too, like actual marketing help, actual coaching on things, boot camps, events, incentive trips, whatever. There's a tremendous amount of different things. So just jumping into an FMO, I think, you could jump into bringing on a few agents local to you and training them, but your value proposition early would be only enough to take a brand new agent under your wing that works directly with you. And I wouldn't necessarily call that as an FMO until you got enough revenue to create a value proposition and have operational staff that help with that. And plus, to be a true FMO, you have to have a compliance side. You also have to have a commissions payable department. There's a lot of operational efficiencies that are required there to be truly good at it. And on the carrier and FMO side, what's the smartest way to structure those relationships so I keep leverage as I grow? I don't even know what that means. I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean there. On the carrier and FMO side, well, one, those aren't the same side. The carrier, I'm not on the carrier side. If you're saying on the FMO side, how do I maintain a relationship with a carrier? Production, compliance, and then just the same way you would with anybody else, relationship, actually having a relationship with the employees, the RVPs, the broker managers, all that kind of stuff. And don't be a dick. That helps a lot. All right. What else we got here? Any more questions that have popped up? Remember, if you have a question, go ahead and ask away. Ask away. Tell me where you're writing from. Let me know if you can hear me. It's kind of funny on the screen. It looks I guess it's all glitchy. It looks like there's like it's tearing in the background or something. It doesn't look like it on here. It looks like it on there. All right. So we're going to go to the next question. Joey says, hey, Justin, with the relationships you've built, I'm wondering if you know of a Medicare agent who has sold their business, who is currently in some type of consulting role for small agencies like my own. I've recently built up a VA and hired an agent who is just super old, and that's my big weakness. I have 5 to 14 apps per day and cross-selling cancer, heart attack, and stroke, and recovery care with MedSups. I do the funnel by you within GoGuru. Anyway, I'm just wondering if there is someone who might be able to work with me the best, organize my business. We do this all day with people. So that's how we've set up our FMO, is like a consulting group that is an FMO. So we can do it by coming to behind the agency. We can do it. That's kind of the dipping someone's toe into that world, because we do a lot of information there. It also evolves over time. So even if you've been to a behind the agency, they're updated. We also started agent boot camps, really for our partners, LOAs, but also for all of you to be able to come and see how we train our agents. And we do it one-on-one. You know, we have people, we have leaders within the office that can work with you. We have that FMO type of relationship where we'll give you as much as you want. We don't have some sort of mastermind set up. I'm not saying I never would do it, but really, you know, a lot of times it's just not as, it can get to be cumbersome in what we do. And I've been focused a lot on the operation lately. So it's been difficult for me to commit the time to do like a mastermind. So if you want one-on-one relationship, of course, the best way to do that is to have a strong FMO relationship with us. If you already have a relationship with us, reach out to Jeremiah or the recruiting team, let them know what you're looking for, and I'll definitely get some time scheduled to hop on a call and point you in the right direction. All right. Boom. Boom. All right. Next question. Tyler says, we currently pay our administrative staff $20 per hour, and we're considering starting agents at a similar base pay of approximately $20 per hour. This approach would ensure a smooth transition for staff moving from an admin role to an agent role without a decrease in pay. However, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Should we keep agents on an hourly rate, or would it be better to switch them to an equivalent salary? Do you use a flat commission percentage across all products? If so, is the percentage calculated on the street level commission or the full agency commission? I'd also appreciate your recommendations on the best approach. So in the LOA model, what we would do, one, our administrative employees are paid a higher base pay than our agents. And that is because the agents are getting commissions. Okay. So typically an agent is end up making more based on production. So we're paying actually agents now. Remember, we're in Tupelo, Mississippi, but we're paying them $12.50 an hour, but it's not a draw. It is a true hourly wage that they're getting on a 40-hour work week typically, and they are getting commission on top of that. We're paying a percentage of commission. We start them at a junior producer role. I'll actually see if I can pull up this progression model.
You want to be on the board?
I think I can. I'm logged into a stream right here. So let's see if I share this. Present. Here we go. I got it right here. Boom. Let's see. Present. Should pop up. Is it doing it? Boom. There we go. Look at that. Okay, that right there is our progression model. So if you're looking at that progression model with me, we start them at a junior producer. So this is all the agents are at $12.50 an hour. They do not get an increase in pay until they become a sales manager, but they do get increases in commission. So these are the weekly goals. If we have a core producer, or to become a core producer, you have to finish in the top 3 and a quarter. And to be promoted to a senior producer, you have to be number 1 and a quarter. That's number 1 out of the core and the junior combined. A legacy producer is by necessity only. We do not just immediately promote someone to legacy. It's based on the availability. Our legacy producers are getting higher quality call queues and lead flows. Like for instance, something simple as Google Maps listing calls, like those are going to legacy producers. So it's going to the most highly efficient, presentable, long-term agents. After that, we actually progress to a team lead. And so team lead, of course, by qualification or by necessity is not an automatic thing the way it is with core, junior, core and senior. And you know, they still have an application goal, but then they have a bonus based on the production of their team. Their base pay actually stays the same, I believe. Yep. And then our sales manager, actually, there is a salary increase and there's a quarterly performance bonus. There's no personal production goal requirement there. But a lot of times, 90-day transition period or so where they're still producing heavily. So that should answer some of those questions. All right, I'm going to remove that. Remove from stage. Boom. Okay. Hopefully that helps. All right, here we go. Let's see. Dylan, if new to the space, would it be more beneficial to try and buy an existing book of business that someone is selling or start from zero? So let's talk about book of business acquisition. So this came up yesterday. Book of business acquisition actually does make significant sense for someone who is newer to the space, as long as you're picking the right type of book. So what I'd be looking for in this case is, first of all, a good deal in the 2x or less range, probably closer to 1x on a book, depending on the size. But if I can get 150, 200, 300, 400 customers in my local market that I can then go out and build a relationship on and really focus on taking care of, get referrals from the person that's getting out of the business, then I can jumpstart my success locally. Where book of businesses don't make sense is sometimes you'll have like a call center guy that'll say, I want to sell you a book of business, and he wants you 2x for it. So let's say he's at street 347 times 2. That's the renewal. That's the 2x on per policy. So 347 times 2 would be, let's see, boy, it should be pretty easy for me, but I'm an insurance guy, not a mathematician. So that's 694. I should have known that off the hand. It's a true up commission. But anyway, 397 or 347 times 2, 694. So you're doing a $694 cost per acquisition of a policy. So if you're looking at it from acquiring policies, it doesn't make sense unless you're arbitraging. So if I'm buying a 2x policy, so I'm paying $694, then, and I get, let's say I buy 1,000 of those. So I pay $694,000 for those, but I'm immediately able to sell it for 5x. Well, then I can arbitrage and make that make sense. But for a local agent, it's different because I'm buying a foothold of customers in a specific area. So you don't want, so when you're buying a book, it depends on how the book was acquired. How did he get in front of these people? How are those relationships built? That is the important thing to look at. If you're buying it for any other reason and you're not arbitraging immediately, then 2x is a pretty high cost per acquisition, considering you could build a sales team and a marketing channel and probably do $350, $300, $250 cost per acquisition. Maybe even if it was $450, that'd be cheaper than 2x a street level renewal. And if somebody has admin fees in there, they might charge even more than that. So, all right. So that's a book of business. That's a good question, Dylan. Thank you for that. There are cases where buying books of business makes significant sense, especially if the seller is in distress and they need to get rid of the asset, and they're not going to charge a lot for it. That would make it make extra good sense. Okay. All right. Let's hop into the next question here. Okay. Hey, this is from Paul. Hey, Justin, been in life and health for 7 years, been doing Medicare the last 3 years. 2025 will have a residual of about 250 clients. I have VA staff that work 40 hours a week right now. I'm moving from Virginia to Charleston in April. I do know how to create ads on Facebook and would like to have a local presence, but also want to get word out there nationally. My question to you is knowing that information, what should I do to grow my? So one, at your size, I would not focus on local and national. I would hone in on one. If you're going national, it's going to be interest based. So I need to go after specific niches, motorcycle enthusiasts, people turning 65 who are veterans, something like that. I have to come up with some sort of niche. Just trying to go after everyone is too broad, and you're not going to draw any interest into you because you're too broadly focused. Locally can be a little bit different. Being the local guy can be part of the interest. if you're going to do that, something that works really, really well is to get super involved on the local Facebook groups. Get super involved. So like in Tupelo, we have and this is a very common group. What's happening in Tupelo? What's happening in Charleston? Get really involved in those groups. Spend a whole bunch of time doing that. That builds a lot of grassroots rapport. Go into the buy, sell, trade groups. And I don't mean just say, hey, I sell Medicare. Call me if you need help. That's not going to do anything. Add some sort of value. Be a community person. It sounds like that's probably how you built your first 250 customers anyway. But 250 customers in 3 years, it sounds a little part-time or slow. If you really wanted to get pumping some marketing money into there and you wanted to go nationally, T65 webinar approach with interest-based, targeting, you could go into legitimately, nobody's doing something like railroad retirees turning 65 webinar. Things to consider when you're on the railroad, Social Security, and turning 65. Turning 65 veterans, turning 65 teachers in Texas, turning 65, all of those types of niche markets could go really well. But just remember, anytime you're marketing, a lot of times we'll say these leads aren't closing well, but it's a process issue. It's telephony. It's how often am I calling them? How quickly am I calling them when they're brand new? What was the call to action on the ad? Was it low intent? Was I advertising free money or was I advertising quality education? What was the ask? So that should get you wet behind the ears. I don't know if that's the way that statement actually is used. All right, let's see here. All right, can you provide more details on Tier 1 and Tier 2 agent structure? Specifically, how do you determine the timeline or metrics of when an agent progresses? So we just talked about that. We currently have our one LOA, our first, and she's essentially our test case. Initially, we plan to transition her to a $2,500 a month salary with 30% of the street level commission. Oh, this is a good point. When you're paying LOA commissions, some people say, I want to pay a percentage of street. Well, if you're above street, this gets a little bit more difficult to do in accounting. So what we like to do is percentage of commission, total commission. Now, what does that mean? If let's say I have a UHC FMO level. So I'm getting the 694, 347, 2026 on like new business or whatever I'm getting from UHC, right? Getting the street level plus $150 an app, whatever the override is. Well, that's going to come on the statement. And so we can pay a percentage of that statement. Same way with a med sup, if I'm at 24%, 24% is going to come through on the statement. I don't want to say, well, I'm going to pay you a percentage of 21% because it just adds a layer of complexity that is unnecessary. Now, the parts of this, like let's say that I'm at a UHC FMO level, but I'm really a GA with UHC, and then someone's paying me an additional amount on the back end. That back end money that comes from the other side, we wouldn't pay that to the LOAs because it's on a separate line item, separate statement, and it adds complexity. The whole point of the way you pay your LOA commissions, it needs to be as simple as possible from an accounting perspective, because it is not going to be simple. So it needs to be as simple as possible. So we don't want to add complexities of paying them a percentage of a different amount than I actually get. So hopefully that helps somebody out there. All right, any questions, Zach? What does this one say? Right now, our cost per sale is $50 to $60. I want to know if that's considered good and what the average cost per sale is for your agents. A cost per sale of $50 to $60 is not only good, it is excellent. If that is a marketing cost per sale, there's a lot more questions that go into that. How scalable is it? Is that based on community organization, or is that based on something as scalable as a Facebook or YouTube or TikTok ad? I don't know the answer to that. So what I would love to see, Zach, is you say, what is the method of that? Is it grassroots? Obviously, grassroots doesn't have a cost associated with it typically, but there can be. You could be including printing and promotional items in there, or something like that. There could be other factors there. So I would love to know what you're including in your cost per sale metrics. But $50 to $60, if scalable, of course, is good. $50 to $60 for, not 50, plus 60. If you have $50 to $60 cost per sale, and you look at what you're making, let's say it's just $347, a street level renewal in the first year, then 347 minus 50 is 297, right? So 297 is my immediate net return. If my return on ad spend is basically $50 cost per sale to 347, then my ROAS, which is the metric you should be looking at, is 347 divided by 50, 6.94. 6.94 return on ad spend. That is significant. The goal is anything above 2x return on ad spend. All right, question over here. You might have already answered, but what is your average call time for a 1-person and a 2-person enrollment? Not with dental vision hearing HI ancillary compliant. 1 person for us is minimum 45 minutes. People that are saying that it's less than that are probably not telling the truth. Now, as a caveat to this, 2-person is not an hour and a half because they're typically they are there together. Now, we still have to go over the summary benefits, read scope of appointment separately, all that kind of stuff. But there's typically not as many questions and back and forth in that second portion because they've been there together. So we do want them, we do like to educate together. And that's not even really whether we like to. Couples like to be educated that way. So typically a 2-person is going to be about an hour and 10 minutes. Hour and 10. So 45 minutes to an hour and 10. So it takes about another 25 minutes. There are going to be people out there that's like, that's way too long. They're not compliant. Don't listen to them. They are going to get you in trouble trying to be so aggressive and tell you how awesome they are and all of that bullshit. The big dogs can hire more people and scale that way. They don't have to front about how much 1 person can do. Sweet. I'm around 50 minutes and 75 minutes. Yes. Perfect. And look, we can always improve to some degree, like we can always do better. Like, could we get that to 40 and 105? Maybe we could look for inefficiencies. But the thing is, there's quite a bit that we have to cover on the call. There's quite a bit we have to cover. Okay. So, and if I really got into this, we might even be 115, 120 on there. So 75 minutes is an hour and 15 minutes. It's pretty solid. 50. I mean, it sounds like you're right there where we are. So I bet you're doing a great job, Chelsea. Good job. All right. Perfect. I'd love Zach to disclose like a little more on that scalability of cost per acquisition. Okay. Any questions you can see that I can't see on the screen right now?
Well, there's a new one now on Facebook. Let's see, right?
That's the Chelsea one?
Yeah.
I just talked about
Okay,
that.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Now, if you add DVH and HI and all that, it really doesn't take that much more time, by the way. That part, because there's not as many compliance variables with that, that part doesn't take as long. ACA versus short-term medical. Great question. Okay. ACA versus short-term medical. And then I'm going to get into, there was a question I didn't answer last week about heat comp. I got into it a little bit, but I'm going to talk about it in a minute. ACA versus short-term medical. So I'm in both, right? ACA right now is a great market for people who qualify for good subsidies. The under $100,000 a year, probably under 70 in most cases. It's always depending on the household size. The way ACA subsidies are calculated for people that don't know is there's a percentage of federal poverty level that a family would be based on their household size, age, et cetera. And there's a corresponding amount of subsidy that can bring down their health insurance premium. Everybody has the same premiums, but people have different amounts of subsidies. And I say everybody has the same premiums. A 35-year-old male, or 35-year-old person is going to have the same premium in Mississippi with this plan, but they might have different subsidy amounts based on their household size, income, et cetera. So when you have that subsidy that is significant, that is a great thing. Now, ACA obviously is great for covering all essential health benefits and having no pre-existing condition requirements or no pre-existing condition exclusions. That's going to be where it wins big time. Okay. Short-term medical, absolutely viable for somebody who's very healthy and wealthy to a point that they can't get a good subsidy on ACA premium. And so it's going to be very expensive to get an ACA premium with high out of pocket. And then they say, well, I'm healthy. I just need something for catastrophe. And this is going to be 30, 40, 50% less expensive. So this is what I'm going to go with. You just have to know the trade-off. Obviously, there's a huge benefit to writing short-term medical, and that is the commissions are high. But we tried to force feed people because it's full transparency. The only time we've ever had a client lawsuit, and this was 8 years ago from a sale that I personally made 8 years ago. It was a short-term medical plan, and that plan was the guy actually did lie on the health questions. They rescinded the policy later on. They decided to go ahead and just pay the premium because he got into a lawsuit, and I just think they wanted to settle the thing. So, but we got named party with the carrier on it. So let's see here. Let me go. I know Buffy's over here, right? So Buffy said, why did you skip me, Sid? Sid, he's always telling me how much he doesn't like Buffy, and I don't know why. But see, what's your favorite dental and why? This is tough. Used to, I would have said Manhattan Life all day. We still write a decent amount of Manhattan Life. We write a lot of the Cigna DVH plans right now. What sucks is there is a plan with the Cigna ACA contract that is a dental policy that is really good, superior, like great network, great coverage, but the commission is terrible. And so I hate not writing because of the commission. So we actually do write a significant amount of it, but we just kind of lean into writing more cancer policies just because that happens to be a more profitable thing. And of all the ancillary we write, the most complaints come from dental because it's high utilization product in comparison to a cancer policy or even a hospital indemnity plan. Oh, MetLife is also an honorable mention, the National Care Dental Plan. Plus, we write their standalone vision. We've even written Humana's dental plan. Sometimes it depends on geography, where you are, because there's different areas that like different plans. Like Manhattan Life is actually pretty well received in Northeast Mississippi because we wrote so much of it back in the day that the dentists got used to the reimbursement style of it. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, I wanted to go back to that heat thing from last week. I hit on it a minute ago. What is heat? Heat is misused as a term. There's really a few different ways of people are compensated, right? Let's just break these down really quick. So you have HEAP, which is not an acronym. You have you have advanced commissions. You have as earned, and then you could be LOA. Now the crazy thing is, so HEAP is technically LOA, but what happens is when you're LOA, you can be compensated in different ways. So if I'm LOA, it creates a path where I can sell the policy immediately to the upline under some sort of arrangement of what they're going to pay for. So, or I can be LOA and paid on a more traditional fee schedule. Now, what's happening sometimes is people are taking LOA that's on a true HEAP model where they're paying a HEAP acquisition of a policy, and then they're going and saying, well, we're HEAP too, but they're paying like $100 to $200. Whereas they might have them on a HEAP program where the top HEAP partner is paying them, I don't know, $800 to $1,000 for the policy. So they can put you on the model, pay you $100 to $200, and just arbitrage your labor heavily. It is what it is. It's totally legal. It's just something that we don't, normally they're paying for the lead flow and stuff for you. So it makes sense to some degree, but that's quite the margin to just like kind of plug you into a seat in your living room and then take that much. It's pretty significant with a low value proposition. Now, advanced and as earned can actually be the same thing too. So this is both where I'm typically going to be paid from the carrier. I'm advanced or as earned. Advanced means that they're advancing future unearned commissions based on a certain advance schedule. So with a med sup, it's often a 9-month or a 12-month advance. So they're saying they take the first month's premium and then they go ahead and pay you the commission on the first 9 months premiums. It's called a 75% advance or a 9-month advance. But you're still as earned, because after that policy's on there for 9 months, in the 10th month, you move to as earned on that policy. Medicare Advantage advances too for the remainder of the calendar year. So if you write a policy for January 1st during AEP, you're going to get a whole year commission. But if you write one for February 1st, you're getting 11/12. So you're still advanced for the year, but it's based on proration of remainder of calendar year. So that's more traditional. So sometimes I'll get people coming from HEAP over to here, and they think as earned doesn't have any advance component. And then sometimes I get people that are over here on the as earned and advanced models, and they don't really understand what HEAP is. So everybody's kind of getting bamboozled by not understanding the comp, and then other people leveraging their understanding of the comp structures to put you in a seat where they're underpaying you. All right, back over here. Yes, nobody is ever happy with their dental. I want to stop writing it. I don't blame you, Buffy. It's not my primary dental. It's not my primary ancillary policy. If an agent is spending 45 to 60 minutes on each call, how can they possibly close 10 to 15 calls a day? Who's closing 10 to 15 calls a day? Nobody should be closing 10 to 15 calls a day. Anybody closing 10 to 15 calls a day is doing it wrong. We said 10 to 15 a week. So I think our goals are on my progression schedule is like 15 and 20 a week. And we use policies oftentimes when we're talking about it. So we don't have very often anybody writing 10 to 15 policies a day. You might have that in a walk-in office during open enrollment where people are kind of walking in, and it's like, hey, can you rewrite this Medicare supplement? And sure, and here's a home health care policy, and you're doing couples 2 at a time. It's a whole different ball game. And then those people are still probably working, 10, 12, 13-hour days doing that. So nobody's consistently writing 10 to 15 app days, especially with 45 to 60 minute per sale. This would be, Zach, this is one of those things where I need you to give me some more information. Where'd you hear 10 to 15 a day? Okay, back over here, ACA alternatives. ATA alternatives is short-term medical. You can go indemnity, Manhattan Life Affordable Choice, those types of things. You just have to know the pitfalls. We prefer to have those sold with ACA or with short-term medical. We have a form that we use if we sell non-ACA, just to make sure. This is actually a form that I think we got from SSBI back in the day. See if I can put it up on the screen. Oh, acknowledgement. Hold on. See if I can find this for you guys really quick. Here it is. Let's see. Go back in here, and then I will share my. There we go. Non-ACA acknowledgement form. So what we're doing is saying my signature below confirms that I have been made aware, my licensed insurance agent, that the short-term medical or hospital indemnity plan for which I'm applying is not an Affordable Care Act plan. My reason for not enrolling in ACA is I simply do not want an ACA plan. I cannot afford the premium. I do not qualify for a special enrollment period. Therefore, the ACA plan is not an option. So we help them do this, sign this, and then we also put a declination of cancer coverage on there. Love to say this was our idea. This is the old Hendrick special at Senior Security Benefits, and we still use that concept today. So works like a charm on helping them get cancer coverage, which they do need if they're getting one of these. We want to get them a big, robust critical illness policy, hopefully cancer, heart attack, and stroke, maybe some other coverage too. So, but that kind of protects you too from them saying that you didn't offer them ACA if something comes up and they needed it. All right. ACA alternatives. I think that's the primary ACA alternatives. We do have a healthcare sharing ministry with Medishare as well as one option. And I think we're good there. Well, it looks like you guys have actually asked some good questions today. I really appreciate the time. We're going to be going live like this in the groups on different platforms very often and trying to get some good questions, good feedback. And we really appreciate you guys giving us some attention and letting us help you. If you have any questions for next week, you can DM them to us. We really want to get you guys to Agent Bootcamp and Behind the Agency coming up this year, where we can help take your business to the next level. We work with agencies all the time. We've seen all the problems, and we would love to help you guys blow it up. So thank y'all so much. Good to see you, Buffy, Will Thompson, Chelsea, everybody that asked questions, Zach over here on LinkedIn. Love the LinkedIn questions. Love to see more of those. Hey, thank y'all for being here.